Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me once again for another episode of Energy Vampires. And today I want to go quite deep, and I want to build upon some foundations that I've laid in previous videos that I've done. Okay, so in previous videos I made the assertion that the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, otherwise known as Jehovah in English, is in fact a part of a much bigger picture. Okay, so where the Old Testament refers to God, it actually translates gods. Elohim means gods, and that is evidenced by the fact that when God is speaking of himself, he's saying we and us. Okay, modern day people would say it's the Trinity, whereas that's a modern idea. The Jews never believed in the Trinity because they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. It's the Jewish book. So the Trinity is a jump. Okay, it's an assumption. There really isn't any evidence. It doesn't clearly state in the Bible that there's a Trinity. The Trinity actually comes from a much older idea. Trinities, triune gods have been a part of mythology through the ages, right? So it is nothing new. But it is new in the Christian doctrine, okay? But anyway, we're not talking about that, so let's get back on point. Alright, so you've got El, which is God, you've got Elohim, which is gods. Okay, so the Old Testament account is referring to gods, okay? So there's many gods. Now, just to kind of cut to the chase here, I believe that the whole, like angels and all the gods, yeah, any supreme being that meddles in the affairs of humanity, that professes to be a god, it's all part of the same race of gods, the Elohim, or, if you go back to the Sumerian writings, the Anunnaki. Now, obviously there's other extraterrestrial beings that have had some kind of meddling in humanity, or, are benevolent even, and but that's a different topic. Okay, so what I want to talk about is that, I want to show some evidence from the Bible, okay, which is ironic because oftentimes when I speak about the Bible, I'm discrediting it as an accurate and reliable source of history, okay? But just to play devil's advocate, not a very nice way to put it, but just play devil's advocate, I'm going to actually use the scripture ironically, because I usually am talking in a very different way, discrediting scripture, but there you go. That's the way I'm going to do it today. So we've seen from my previous video UFOs and aliens in old artwork, which was it really interests me because, in the modern day, we've got like photographs of flying objects, UFOs, and we got UFO footage and photographs, and unfortunately, because of the age we live in, they can't be relied upon because you can do such a good job of faking it, you wouldn't know it's fake. It's like, our technology now is so good, and we can do a really convincing job of a fake UFO. So while many of them may be genuine, we can't rely on them as standalone evidence. It does interest me when you've got old photographs from the old-fashioned cameras, the old films that you wind on and they're not digital, and before computers were about, before Photoshop was about, and there's a few of those that they kind of make you pay attention. Okay, but what really interests me is like old art from hundreds of years ago and thousands of years ago, paintings that depict UFOs in the sky, because these guys who painted these paintings don't even have a conception of a flying machine. Airplanes hadn't even been thought of. So, there was nothing man-made flying in the sky. So while today we would say, oh, that's an unidentified flying object, but it could be a military experiment, or it could be someone messing around with a drone. It could be one of those Chinese lanterns. You know, there's a whole bunch of possible explanations. But in the old days, you didn't have any of that to offer as an explanation. So if it was indeed a genuine photograph or a genuine, painting that hasn't been messed around with, then you would say, well, it must be otherworldly. What else could it be? Right? So what I want to do is I want to go into some scriptures about UFOs. Okay, and why am I doing this? It's because I believe that if you take God out of the Bible and replace that word with supreme being, extraterrestrial being, alien, whatever terminology you want to use, then it begins to make sense. So a lot of things that previously did not make sense, they were illogical, they seemed unfair, they seemed cruel, but if you replace it with a fallible, non-perfect, non-omnipresent, non-benevolent, just an ordinary being, 3D being, right, that could be good or could be bad, and they had technology that was advanced but limited. Yeah. So if you begin to think about these things, then maybe the Bible could be true in a sense, right? So let's have a look. So in no particular order, I've brainstormed and I've got a list of scriptures here. So first of all, let's look at Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 4, and it reads, I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning, and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal. Okay? Now, Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 6, which is just a couple of verses on, it says, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Well, that's not human, is it? The next verse, verse 7, their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf, and gleamed like burnished bronze. Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 5, they come from faraway lands, from the ends of the heavens, the Lord and his weapons of his wrath to destroy the whole country. Okay, now here's an interesting one. Isaiah chapter 60 and verse 8. Who are these that fly along like clouds, like doves to their nests? Exodus chapter 13 verses 21 through to 22. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, and to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from the people. 2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 11 reads, and it came to pass, as they, Elijah and Elisha, still went on and talked, that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Now I want you to think about the fact that these Bible writers had no concept of flying machines. They didn't have sci-fi terminology, right? They didn't use words like UFO, spaceship, aerial object. Like they don't have that same way of thinking nor terminology, right? They used things that were common in their day to describe it. So a chariot is a moving vehicle so far as they're concerned, and they didn't have electric lights. If there was something in the sky, it was moving, it would be a chariot, and if it was on fire, sorry, if it was lit up, it would be on fire, right? That's my guess. It's just a thought. Okay. Now, interestingly, you know, I think about not only the past but the present, right? So in the present day, we have reports of sightings of various sites of UFOs. Now, tell me what this is if it's not a cigar-shaped UFO. Cigar-shaped UFOs are reported repeatedly in the modern times, right? In this time. Okay, so it says in Zechariah, and it's chapter 5, verses 1 to 2. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying scroll, right? And he said unto me, What seest thou? I answered, I see a flying scroll, the length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Okay? Alright. So, let's just do one more. Now, I'll do future videos on this because, there's a lot more actually, but, I just don't want to make it too long. But there is a lot more, but we're going to do one more. Okay, and then we're going to move on to a slightly different thing. Okay, so Matthew chapter 2 and verses 9 through to 11, it reads, And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over the young child was, where the young child was. Okay. Now, I'm just going to pause for a second, okay? Now, stars don't move in the sky and then stand still, over someone. I think it could have been a high-flying spaceship vehicle that was moving and guiding, guiding them. So, anyway, it's a thought. It might not be. Okay, where they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, and when they were come into the house, they saw the young child and Mary his mother fell down and worshipped him. Okay, all right. So, why is this believable? This whole concept, because we've got other ancient written collaboration. It's not only the Bible that you would look at it and think, that sounds to me like a UFO, but they just didn't know it. But the way they're describing it sounds like a UFO, right? It's not only in the Bible, right? What about the Vedas in the Indian writings that are also ancient? Okay, so it's a pretty blatant one here. And actually there's no debate, because I have Indian friends and they do believe in the Vedas that they were flying machines. Okay, so it says here in the Ramayana, my apologies for my pronunciation, when morning dawned, Rama, taking the Vemana Puspaka, had sent him by, oh my goodness, Vifsahand, stood ready to depart. Self-propelled was that car. It was large and finely painted. Okay, self-propelled car. All right. So another excerpt here reads that aerial and excellent Vimana, going everywhere at will, is ready for thee. That Vimana, resembling a bright cloud in the sky, is for the city of Lanka. Okay, in conclusion, and we're going to cover some more of this in the future, but religion will have you believe that there is one singular God, creator of the entire universe, who is everywhere all at once and knows all your thoughts, and knows when you've been bad or good, and knows when you're awake and knows when you're asleep, just like Santa. But, you know what? God and the gods get around in vehicles, and they're not everywhere all at once. There is biblical evidence for this assertion as well, and we'll cover it in another video. Thank you for listening, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.